RWBY, Volume 5, Episode 6, known by its song. What happens? We start off with Crow looking for Huntsman in a bar. When that doesn't work out, Crow takes a search to the streets. This eventually takes him to a shitty-looking house where he finds a sad family, rather than a huntress. Crow goes back to pay the bartender as we jump over to Raven's tent. Raven exposits her and Crow's backstory for a bit, then starts up the "we already know this" train. Raven shows the girl she can turn into a bird, then offers the two the choice to stay or go. Weiss and Yang leave as they meet up with Ruby and the others. Oh man. This opening scene kinda flops in every way. If it's trying to be funny, it's not working. There's no joke. I'm also distracted that Crow's so threatened by this guy. The dude held his own against a psychopath with wrist blades. A fat guy with a knife isn't an issue. Also, he should just be able to activate his aura and not get hurt. Because that's how it works, I think? People can survive gunshots. Just a knife isn't anything to panic about. However, that is all nitpicking a bit. It's a fine, if boringly cringy scene, and sets up Crow's quest well enough. These rando background characters look pretty neato, especially her. She looks like a kick-ass mom, but once again, this whole sequence is a little slow. We just linger on Crow's ugh reactions for a bit too long. You can tell the scene's gonna be sad cause it's raining. This is another thing I find really doesn't work in the scene's favor. Up until this guy opens the door, the show's been pushing a comedic tone, and suddenly tries to shift to serious. I think the intention was along the lines of, tragedy can hit when you least expect, but it doesn't really work. One, because we've been conditioned to attribute gray, rainy weather to sad shit, and two, it's simply executed in an incohesive way. Rather than a sudden realization that this is a cold world, it just goes from bad jokes to suddenly sad. Were the weather not have been as obviously foreboding, it might have worked better, but as it is, the audience goes into the whole sequence expecting things to get dark. This set looks fine technically, but it's also obviously a set. It's tiny and closed off. It's just clearly something they threw together for this scene. Not to mention how it doesn't even look like Crow's still in Haven. Haven being shown as 2D images already creates a disconnect from the rest of the scenery in the show, and causes this location to appear to be a new area. Crow, chill out. The dude looks miserable and lives in a shithole. You don't have to yell at the guy. So this little kiddo is pretty cute. But I also hate this scene because it's so cheap and obvious. How do we make Crow and the audience feel sad about these missing huntsmen? Have a little kid cry about their missing mom. It's just so basic. Give her a sad voice, a shitty house, make it rain. I'm surprised she doesn't fall in the mud and drop her ice cream. And to top it all off, this whole scene's useless in the long run. We could have gathered that the huntsmen were missing from Crow checking on the status board alone. All the scene seems to be doing is trying to pull at our heartstrings, but man, is it not working. The same goes for when Crow pays off Shiro's debt at the bar. We don't know these people. We don't really care if they're dead. Putting a sad little girl in the scene doesn't change that. Is this the same day? It's all sunny and nice here, but the weather's gray and gloomy at the bar still. And how much fucking time has passed? 16,000 lien means nothing to me. I have no idea what the value of a lien is like. How much does a sandwich or a video game cost? 3 lien? 300 lien? These little wooden sculptures are so cute, and I like the use of them showing the passage of time. Bartender X Shiro is my OTP. It's really cool that the bar has a no fauna sign. This is the kind of subtle racism I'd like to see more of if they want to push the inequality angle so much. Is this really enough? No. It's hard to believe this racism is so prominent at all when the headmaster of the school is a faunus, but it's at least a start.
You know, you're really obnoxious.
Weiss is my spirit animal. In all seriousness though, if RT has the wherewithal to acknowledge Raven's obnoxious attitude, you'd think they'd also attempt to write her less annoyingly. Raven's one of the least likable characters not because she's abandoned her daughter, but just the way she talks. Raven speaks and acts like a bratty teen who thinks they've gotten the whole world figured out. It's annoying, and while it's good to not like the villains, I'd rather not like Raven for something substantial, not just her shitty attitude. I like getting to hear about Crow and Raven's past a bit. Their backstory is pretty unique, and I appreciate the new information it offers. I've always thought a Team Stark manga or spin-off would be a good idea, and the idea of getting to see more of Raven and Crow's bandit struggles sounds interesting. Raven's backstory also gives us good insight on Ozpin, which is only compounded with Weiss's brief history overview of his. Getting to learn more about the pasts of characters we know now, especially the important ones, is fun. What's not fun is being told shit we already know. We already know about Salem. Why would you waste our time talking about her? Why would you build up to a great secret, Ozpin's god, just for the secret to be, Salem exists and controls the Grimm? Fucking duh! What the hell is that stupid-ass weapon? It's annoying that Yang asks Raven why when it comes to leaving, but Raven just changes the topic again. It doesn't seem to be a tactic to avoid talking about it, because Raven has no problem talking to Yang about the stuff later. It just sounds like a good segue into I can turn into a bird scene. This whole conversation feels so stiff and scripted. It feels like I'm watching a bunch of people say their lines, rather than talk normally. The scene's also dead quiet again. Did they just fire their background music department or something? What constitutes as magic, exactly? How come super speed, body doubles, lightning resistance, mind manipulation, summoning, creation of bad luck, space portals, pain nullification, and magnetism don't count as magic? Faunus exist in this world. Why is turning into a bird so surprising? Reincarnation? Sure, that sounds like magic. Weather powers? Just sounds like a basic bitch semblance to me. This fire is distractingly a different style. Hey, that's a really cool shot. Yang, I really want you to stay here with me. You're cool and strong and like, we can hang out and stuff. Wouldn't that be cool? Fucking, what are they even doing with Raven? I just don't understand why Raven suddenly wants Yang to hang out with her so much after she's abandoned her for 17 years. All this animation with the two on the bike looks really good and smooth, and I can't figure out why. Maybe it's because it's more movement than just sitting still and talking. It's just good. Do that again. Yang's giant head is most noticeable when right next to Weiss's normal-sized head. Why the friggity fuck is Jean still wearing his armor while setting the table? RWBY should have been able to see who was with Crow from the stove where she started. Did she just stare at her feet until she grabbed the tea? I kinda wish they skipped over RWBY's apology and just jumped to Yang hugging her. Like, it's fine as it is, don't get me wrong. It's just, RWBY's body language already tells us everything. Roosterteeth's proven that they're very good at scenes without dialogue, and I think this moment could have done well without all the talking in it. That being said, it's still a very nice scene, with some of the better performances Barbara and Lindsay offer this volume, and including Weiss just makes it all the cuter. This is one of the better scenes of the whole volume between atmosphere, performances, and animation. Yang's original hug looks pretty awkward, but it doesn't detract from the overall good job this part provides. And so, that's Known by its song. This episode kinda sucks. It just drags on, and don't get me wrong, sometimes it's good to just let a scene take its time, but like, something of significance still kinda has to get done at some point. The forced in make Crow sad shit is useless, and it takes 6 minutes. Half the episode is just dedicated to showing us the town is sad without all the huntsmen there. That would be fine if it ever went anywhere, but it doesn't. Later, Crow gets upset when he learns Leo's the one to blame for all the missing huntsmen, but it matters so little that it's easy to forget. Raven's backstory stuff was neato, but that's just a portion of an overall boring monologue that mostly consists of telling us more shit we already know. The amount of new information we got with Raven doesn't counterbalance all the repeated info and certainly doesn't make up for her annoying attitude and cadence. I hate Raven for all the same reasons I hate Whitley, but she gets way more screen time, unfortunately. I liked the final scene, but similar to lighting the fire, simply ending a boring episode with a hug does not fix it. You could have cut this episode's length in half, cutting out Sad Crow and most of Raven's already known shit, and it would have been a fine episode. This trend of overextending the runtimes by padding out the script with monologues, exposition, and backstory is one of the worst parts of this whole volume. I've complained about the slow pace of each episode so far, and that certainly does not stop here. It feels like nothing gets done this volume since so much of the runtime is dedicated to standing around talking. 6 episodes in and we're still setting stuff up and dropping huge exposition dumps. This pacing blows and has harshly affected the quality of the volume, but that's something I'll get into more when it becomes a bigger issue down the road. As it is, this episode is waiting around for 16 minutes to get to the good part. Along the way, we learned a little bit of new stuff, but on a rewatch, that shit's dull to sit through again. When your episode's only 17 minutes long, I should not be bored for 16 minutes of it. Things can happen sooner than the last minute of an episode, but I think we all know that RT struggles to even make it that far later into the volume with their newfound love for cliffhangers. One nice minute doesn't fix an ultimately dull episode.